Well, thank you again for reaching out. I'm really looking forward to answering some of your questions today. So let me know how I can help you out in the PhD application process. This is a really great question and actually comes with a really great story. So, when I started my master's in public health, I was clueless. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my career. I was joining student organizations and different clubs left and right to try and figure out. And then I found my summer internship, which happened to be more of a research. I mean, it was with a professor at Stanford, and I was doing research for her while also helping do some of her school-based curriculum work in substance use prevention. And I was involved in a lot of the more research side because I was a master's student and I was having a lot of fun with it. And one day, I was just having sort of a heart to heart with my mentor there. And she asked me, she's like, what do you want to do with your career? And I looked at her and I was like, well, I want to be like you. I want to be a professor. I want to teach and I want to be able to do this kind of sort of cutting edge research. And then she looks back at me and is like, well, that means you have to get a PhD. And just because with the masters, you can't become a professor at, a research institution or a research university. And because I have the wanting to both mentor students as well as teach, as well as conduct my own research projects, run my own lab, and be a leader, you do need to get a PhD in order to be qualified for those types of job positions. So, from that more technical standpoint, that's why I went from being like back of the mind, I should apply for a PhD to the okay, I definitely need to apply for a PhD.
Okay.
And I went back my second year of my master's program and dove into the application process and here I am now. So I considered taking a gap year, but I didn't want to lose momentum and let one gap year turn into two gap years. So that's why. But that was my impetus for pursuing a PhD program. Yeah, so I would say that if you're reaching out to professors right now, it's very early. I mean, they're still wrapping up the application cycle for this year. So generally, if you're going to be applying in fall of 2024, you wouldn't start reaching out to professors until early fall of 2024. So this is, I think the timing is also just not top of mind for professors right now. And there are some programs that they actually tell professors, I've been hearing of this more and more, to not actually talk to students before they turn their application in because it's like an unfair advantage to certain students, et cetera. Although I still always recommend to try and connect with professors despite that. So I think the responses you're getting are a combination of those two. I wouldn't worry too much in terms of the way they're responding to you. It can be hard, but I wouldn't read too much into it. That could, like I said, just be the fact that you're reaching out at sort of an off time in terms of application cycle, and as well as there might be a school policy that they can't talk to students. So
Mhm.
what I would recommend is I actually have an email template on my blog of what I used to reach out to professors, and it generated a lot of really positive responses. So feel free to take that template and obviously replace it with your own information and relevant contact, etc. And then you can use that to reach out to professors to see if the template might also help get a more specific response. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a really good question. And I guess I don't really have an answer. Well, you are the only one who knows the answer to that question. So this is the time where you want to sit down and really let yourself have the space to just think about what are you passionate about researching? What topics would you want to dedicate at least the next 4 to 5 or however long your PhD experience is to studying. And just know that you're never locked into anything. So just because you join a lab or you say you're going to do your thesis or your dissertation on a certain topic, it doesn't mean that you're locked into that forever. So don't feel like you have to decide your entire life career before applying for your PhD. But you definitely want to have some sort of focus and show that you're passionate about that focused topic. It sounds like you do a lot of bioengineering type work, right? Yeah. So if that is the case, and if you're hoping to do a more bioengineering type PhD, I would say the fluidity of being able to kind of adjust and pivot might be a little bit less than if you're in like a social sciences, public health PhD, which is what I did. Again, don't quote me on that. It really depends on program to program, but I think overall, like you again are always have the opportunity to pivot if you need to. It just might be more difficult or more easy in certain programs and certain schools and certain labs and certain departments. So it really does depend. But like I said, you're never locked into anything. I think again with hard sciences and bioengineering, you might be limited to like what other labs are at that school and who has space in their lab to take. I mean, there's definitely going to be some logistical concerns, but um, I would definitely do your research when you're looking up each program you're applying to see kind of like what you're interested in, like which lab you might want to join, and then other labs that are also happening within that school. Yeah, so I would say that the possibilities are endless. That's my cliche big picture response. I think the beauty of science is that, what you just described of your kind of big picture goals for your research projects, yes, they seem to incorporate very different fields. And yes, you can become an expert in all of those fields if you want, or what I see more commonly happening is, there'll be experts in different fields come together and then they collaborate on this interdisciplinary project to create this one amazing, kind of lab project, whatever. So it's actually quite common now to like have, on grants, in labs, et cetera, to like have collaborators with very different backgrounds who come together and then kind of their synergy of their expertise is what really drives the research forward, not necessarily just having one person who's doing everything. So hopefully that might make
Mm,
I know that's not a super satisfying
good.
answer, but that might give you some
Yes.
feeling that you don't have to do everything. You can just choose to focus on sort of one element or one discipline and learn about the other ones too. And then in the future, find your colleagues, your friends, your other fellow scientists that can help fill in some of the gaps. But you're also providing, that expertise in one way too. Yeah, so it sounds like that you are trying to tell the story of you've had all this very diverse kind of work and research and educational experience. And now you want to make a pivot in your PhD journey to study something a little bit different than what you've had. I wouldn't say that what you're trying to go into is completely irrelevant to all of your prior experience. It's just a little bit, it's a different specialty. So I would definitely say that it is okay to tell that story in your personal statement. You can talk about, how you've had, in summary, all of those experiences in the past that have led you to where you are now. And what you learned from those experiences is that you don't actually want to stay in that field. You want to take sort of any skills that you've gotten from your past experiences and then apply them towards this new topic that you want to explore more in depth.
So
And I
for
think that is
example,
totally okay to describe that in your personal statement. Yeah, absolutely. There are physician MDs who almost operate as if they were PhD researchers and run their own lab and have their own research team. Some of them fully do research, some of them do like half, like part research, part seeing patients. It really depends, but there are definitely MD physicians who are leading labs and take on PhD students. One of
so
my dissertation committee members was actually a pediatrician with an MD. It's up to you. Some people really don't want to work on their statement of purpose really early. It's usually the hardest part of the application. But if helping you outline that or draft it will help consolidate your ideas, then by all means go for it and start drafting it early. I would say that just any sort of exercise that allows you to take a step back and just think about, yeah, like exactly what you said. What do you want to focus your research on? And think more kind of intentionally about that and really think hard because it is something that you are going to want to commit the rest of your next couple of years to doing, and you're going to want to make the case that you're passionate about that throughout your application and as you're interviewing, etc. So you definitely want to find that fire that like lights you up and makes you really unique and interesting and passionate as a potential PhD student. So whatever that might take, if that, like I said, if helping you outline or draft your statement of purpose will allow you to do that, then go for it. Or if you want to, take a day where you just like sit and Google and look up labs and look up professors and see what sort of sticks when you do that kind of Googling and research. That's kind of more of the method that I took. But I went in already sort of knowing that I was broadly interested in tobacco prevention and adolescent health. So I used that to sort of narrow my focus down. Yeah, or I'm
I
imagining you can even just draw a diagram, like almost like your PhD
map,
application vision board map. Yeah, exactly. That can be what you
yes.
sort of create and then use that to um, really think critically about what you might want to study during your PhD.
Go ahead. Like,
Well,
can
that is a big question. I might need you to make it more specific. But
okay.
I had a really great PhD experience. That's why I vlog about it, make all these videos and meet with students. So yeah, what specifically do you want to know about my PhD experience? Yeah, so I wrote my application based off of the research that I had just done in the summer of 2018, which was when I did my master's internship and focused on the adolescent vaping epidemic and talked about that in my statement of purpose. And I did highlight that I wanted to focus on that and understanding more of the kind of environmental, contextual, as well as sort of online social media factors that influence adolescent substance use. And that is generally what I focused on during my PhD. I didn't do my dissertation on social media. And in fact, I sort of incorporated other substances besides just, vaping and e-cigarettes. So I did expand a little, I changed a little bit, but it was all kind of generally around that topic. But I would say that if I wanted to have done something completely different, at least in my public health program, I don't think it would have been, as long as it's within some reasonable scope that I could have still, you know, worked on it with my advisor. I think that it's okay to go in with a specific idea and then pivot once you're there, because as you go through your PhD journey, you're going to learn things are going to change in your field. Like it might not make sense to study what you wrote about in your statement of purpose, because things will change based on your training and maybe the state of the science at that time too. Yeah, so again, since I was in more of a public health social
Mhm.
science type PhD, and I also did not want my PhD to take forever, I did mostly secondary data analysis, but I did collect my own qualitative data for one of my studies, and helped out with the data collection of another survey. So it was a combination of both secondary analysis and primary data collection for my dissertation, but I was definitely very strategic in making sure that I was picking projects, picking data sets, and being mindful of making sure that I was going to still be able to finish my dissertation on time, without having any constraints due to data access or gathering. The biggest thing, that's a great question. So I went into my PhD program with zero quantitative skills. That might be an exaggeration, but it was pretty close to like not very good. And I didn't know how to use any sort of statistical software, like nothing. Now that I'm on the other side, I weirdly can now say that I'm pretty, I don't know, I don't wanna overquote myself, but I know how to use R to do my analyses. I can code, for everything that I need to do. I have a pretty basic understanding of a lot of statistical methods and can apply them. And I can generally, like, read a research paper and, like, critique the methods, so I feel very proud of myself for in a 4-year program having really kind of made a 180 in terms of my quantitative skills and ability to use R. Definitely. Yeah, I am someone who went from very, very novice in statistics to improving that quite a bit by the end of the program. Yeah, that's also a big question. I would say that like not just the PhD, but academia is more filled with more challenges than it is easy things. People like to say, like, academia, you should expect 90% rejection, and that is definitely the case. I think being a PhD student, being in academia, you're constantly being thrown things that um, are not pleasant. It's whether your manuscript's being rejected, you're getting comments back, criticizing or, not criticizing, but you're getting comments back of people critiquing your work and reviewing your work, and not all of the time is it positive. So it's can be really hard to stay positive and like lift yourself up in an environment, in a career path that is filled with so much um, of this rejection. And that has honestly been the biggest sort of overall challenge for me, not just in the PhD program, but just in academia in general. And I don't really have a clear solution for this yet. I'm still figuring it out myself. It takes a lot of, reminding myself that I'm still successful, but also just celebrating all of the little wins, even just submitting a grant, submitting a paper, all of it's great work. And that unfortunately that the field is un you know, filled with more failure than success, but you will work towards that success. And every time that don't get something or you do fail, it can turn into a learning experience. And I've tried to look at it that way to stay positive. Um, but it is difficult. It's gonna be tough journey, but I think that, people who go into it like me or people like you, just even from our call today, I can tell, we have the passion to want to give back to the world, to want to contribute something back to society. And I think that's what drives us to continue to move forward despite the challenge.